Welcome to the Defiant. I'm your host, Tegan Klein. Today, I'm joined by Jacob and Marcin, co-founders of RedStone. RedStone is an oracle in the crypto space picking up steam. We get into the nitty-gritty details of oracles, how RedStone is going up against the oracle monolith Chainlink, how they differentiate, and they share an exclusive update with us. But first, Jacob and Marcin talk about their introductions and what they're working on inside of RedStone.
Thanks for having us. I'm Jacob, I'm the founder, still acting as a CEO, but I got a technical background. So that's a big bias in our company, and we got like 16 engineers out of 20 people, and we try to focus on building the really cool technology, trying to innovate the space, trying to come out with new ideas how to optimize oracles. Because oracles, the data delivery services to blockchains, we believe that's one of the most important parts of the blockchain stack and the core piece of the infrastructure.
Hi, I'm Marcin, and I'm co-founder and COO at RedStone. I previously worked in Google Cloud as a program manager and co-founded 2 startups that failed. But in 2020, Jacob reached out to me as a senior software engineer and also ex-smart contract auditor to join his journey on building a new generation of Oracle. And honestly, I had little hesitation to join him. And that's how we all started. So now we're over here. Thanks also for having us.
Amazing. Well, I'm super excited to dive into oracles for the audience in a bit. But first, maybe tell us a little bit about the history of RedStone.
So the company started roughly 2 years ago. And I'm in the blockchain space since 2016. Used to be a old-fashioned software engineer working in fintech, super boring stuff, banks, insurance. So that was a bit of a fresh air when I discovered blockchain. And I was like fascinated how quickly can you roll out a new stuff, can you build service, and the market, the audience is immediately worldwide. So after acting as a CTO in the blockchain startup, we've been dealing with public services and government. I was back then in London, UK, been building like lots of cool stuff, but working with public services and charities. When the COVID struck, it's not the best business idea. So I started using my knowledge. I was acting as a freelance smart contract auditor, worked together with the Open Zeppelin. They're great guys, shout out to them. And I also was participating in multiple hackathons. And although the ideas were really cool, I got amazing support from the hackathon organizers, like winning few of them. But when you showcase, for example, fixed interest rate protocol, it looks really great on the demo day, but then you need the data about interest rate. And it was impossible to find it on chain. Then I managed to win a blockchain week in New York, building the leverage synthetic platform. But then if you leverage synthetics, you need access to really low latency data. And good luck looking for that 3 years ago. So I was like getting more and more frustrated that there are many amazing ideas that couldn't be built because of lack of data in the blockchain space. So I was digging deeper, like what can you do about it? Discovered that there are some structural issues, like how the oracles work. And I joined the Arweave incubator. Arweave is an amazing storage chain. So the bottleneck for oracles, in my view, was the exorbitant cost of data storage. So literally, like when the gas price was exploding during the DeFi summer, literally like the bill for a single day for the oracles was more than $2 million. So there's no wonder that you could only access the price fit for the blue chip tokens. And if we can design the oracles in different ways to use alternative sources of storage to abstract this data layer and push prices on chain only when necessary, that's the way to move forward. And here we are now, like providing like more than 1,000 feeds and having like the data latency of only a few seconds.
Amazing. And can you tell us a little bit about who's using this for their data feeds?
we are still quite early in the market. So for 2 years, we were like deep down in our cave, building stuff, get like a few audits, working on the security, because that's the kind of business that you do not want to run before you walk. It's like let's say, it's super important to be robust, secure, as a lot of value depends on the quality of oracles. And we get out this year in January, we integrated with the first project called Delta Prime, and we've provided them with feeds not only around the most popular tokens, but also like LP tokens, stake tokens, etc. And we're like super happy to see their trajectory. So I think in February, that was the fastest growing DeFi project on DeFi Llama, and they get to about 25 million TVL almost in 3 weeks. So that was like impressive to see that if you get more data, you can build really cool stuff. And I think at the moment we are working with 12 projects at a very advanced stage. I think 5 of them are live, and slowly getting more market.
Amazing. And in 2022, after your first raise, Lemnis Cap said that this release is essential for DeFi infrastructure, your Oracle. Can you talk a little bit about that?
DeFi space, I mean, to say that it's like a fast moving is not enough. It's like a crazy. I'm absolutely crazy. I think that your listeners know much more about it, because every podcast, every week, there are like new projects, and we see that although there are really great established players in the space that provide like high quality data, often new projects require something more, like access to liquid staking tokens, or access to LP tokens, or to have a really low latency, etc. So you need to innovate. You need to get into the market niches, and that's how can we help DeFi keep evolving and improving. So that's our goal, just to be this most innovating oracle on the market.
Amazing. And can we talk a little bit about the competition? What does that landscape look like? And I know a lot of people have been afraid to enter the Oracle market, just given Chainlink stranglehold and the Chainlink army. So how did you kind of overcome that hurdle?
I think Marcin is like a master of BD. I let him handle this tough one.
Yeah, so of course it's not an easy task, right? But honestly, for such a decentralized space as Web3 is, monopoly is something super unnatural. If you think about any other primitive within like the space, there is always like a couple of companies building stuff. So we believe that in the long term, of course, there has to be a suite of oracles that projects can choose from, right? So we also kind of admire Chainlink for creating like the early days of DeFi, but for them, DeFi summer wouldn't have been possible, right? I mean, they did an amazing job like in 2019, 2020, like creating like the foundation of thinking about DeFi. But our idea is that when you become such a big organization and also an established one, you are less prone to innovate and also slower to react to all the innovation that happens, right? Like as Jacob said, every other week we have a new tool, new stuff coming up. So new layer 2s, new like tooling, various tokens. Right now, I would say, as we talk in May 2023, it's a lot about LSTs, right? Like recently Lido introduced V2 and there are a lot of other LST protocols booming. So DeFi projects are willing to use these kind of tokens like quickly into their protocols. And in order to adapt, you have to be nimble. And that's where we see a lot of our value with our architecture, because Chainlink right now became something like Bitcoin, I would say. So it's like big and very secure, but people are afraid of breaking things. So there is not much changing. Whereas if you want to keep up with the innovation cycle of Web3, you truly have to keep on shipping more and more and talk with developers constantly and all the time.
Got it. And can you explain LSDs for the audience who might not be familiar?
Sure. So right now, I would say it's rather LST with T at the end, not D, because we used to call them liquid staked derivatives, or maybe other people meant something else on Web3 conferences talking about LSDs. I don't know. Right now, it's liquid stake tokens, right? So I would say one of the most popular is Lido staked ETH and Lido wrap staked ETH, right? But we also have other incumbents in the space like Rocket Pool. We also have Coinbase ETH. We have Swell that is right now like approaching to the market. So it's a very interesting space following the merge that happened in 2022. And it's only going to grow as we see what's the percentage of Ether that is staked in comparison to other ecosystems, right? So also like when we're talking about Avalanche and other ecosystems, there's also like LSTs for these. But I would say right now, a lot of eyes are on Ethereum and how the things progresses over there.
Got it. And then I want to double click. How is RedStone different than other Oracle solutions like Chainlink outside of the innovation and nimble piece you mentioned?
So early at the inception, we decided that if we want to have a chance in the market, we need to be radically different. So the idea was to focus on the scalability. So instead of pushing data directly on chain, which was a very nice idea at the beginning when there wasn't a lot of data to be provided, we decided to build like an abstraction layer in the middle. So all of the feeds are being pushed to something we call data delivery network, and we work hard to make it fast but decentralized. So we use various cool projects that emerged during that time, like for example Arweave for the full persistence, and also Streamer as a highly decentralized PubSub network. And the data remains in that layer until someone really needs that to execute a transaction on chain. So we fetch the data on demand and automatically inject that to a user transaction. Therefore, we get this amazing scalability. So you pay gas only per usage, but you get the possibility and access to a large volume of potentially available feeds. So that's our difference. That we just decided we need to be scalable and we need to be efficient. And there are like the two main principles.
Got it. And maybe for those that aren't familiar with the Oracle market today or the Oracle space, can you kind of give us an idea of what that looks like and the different kind of categories in each?
When people read about oracles or listen about oracles at the very first, let's say, encounter, they think of this intermediate layer that passes all kinds of data to all the layer 1s and layer 2s and layer 3s possible. Whereas in practice, it's not that simple, right? First, like there is kind of a huge cost in delivering the data. So you have to create like a reasonable business model in there. So I would say DeFi was the first one to justify huge costs for oracles to operate. And right now over there, we have mainly the price oracles. So we deliver price feeds of various assets, mainly like cryptocurrencies and tokens, but also real world data, stocks, bonds, and so on and so forth, in order to create various DeFi applications. There could be also like oracles that provide real world, like data that is not related to financial world, like results of sport betting or elections or any other stuff that happens in the world. But I would say it's rather the story of the future. Thankfully, our architecture of RedStone is adjusted for that. So we are able to provide such information. But first, you have to create like a reasonable business model with it, because like many times you get this question, hey, can you provide this data? Can you provide this data? It turns out we can, but you're going to consume it. You're not going to create a business out of it. So how will you be possibly able to pay for that, right? Because we want to go out of this kind of like imagination that Chainlink created, that data is for free. Like there's no infrastructure cost, there's no gas cost, right? Because they have been subsidizing for years. So people have this imagination like, okay, so this stuff happens for free over there. So we right now focus on price feeds and financial data, but are also capable of delivering other types of information to different like layer 1s and protocols.
Got it. Super helpful. And then what do you say to the people that claim the Oracle space today is quite centralized?
Yeah, I think it could be a valid point. Like, if you look deeper, it's really important, like who actually, let's say, get this magic switch, for example, to pause or turn off feeds. That's during this, let's say, crazy turmoil time when someone suddenly realized that the feed was stopped. Then you must ask him, like, who made the decision and how was it like possible? So only during these moments you realize like what's happening under the water. And as we started a bit later, we were like really concerned about these challenges of decentralization of control. So we decided to give this power to our users, protocols, and then they can define in the smart contracts which data providers do they trust, and they get like full control to switch data provider, to stop a feed, etc. So we do not have this magic superpower that we decide this data provider will provide only that fees, or there are the conditions under which the data is being delivered. All of the specification could be decided on by our users' protocols, and we left them with the freedom.
Amazing. And then are there any other areas where you see opportunity for further decentralization in the Oracle space?
I think also what is like very important for us, but also it could be a really big factor in the future of oracles, is the question, what's the origin of data? Like, who provides the data? Because the entity that provides the data is actually the entity that kind of controls the behavior of a protocol. So if we provide like a delayed data or the slightly skewed data, then there could be like a financial gain from that. So we wanted to have a full transparency around the sources of data. So all of the code is fully open source. We provide like a manifesto that specifies that the data is taken from given sources, and it could be like off-chain exchanges, that could be DEXs, all of the on-chain protocols for derivatives, and also aggregators. But then you have full visibility from where the data comes, what is the aggregation methodology, and how it's been delivered. And on top of that, all of the historical feeds are available on the Arweave chain. So we believe that this space needs a bit more transparency, and especially if we are going for more professional institutional use cases, having like the visibility of the full life cycle of the data, if it's not manipulated, if it's not tampered with, it's very important to have a trust in the DeFi protocols.
Yeah, so verifiable data is super important, and that's kind of how you're solving the garbage in, garbage out problem. Is that right?
Mm-hmm, exactly. So first open source code, then open source configuration and fully transparent configuration on the data sources.
Got it. And I know you guys have big news to share today. Tell us a little bit about that news.
Yeah, so for the past over a year, we were like attending many conferences and being present in the Web3 ecosystem. So naturally, we're talking with new projects, but also with the OGs of the space and trying to explain them like what we are doing and what's the difference, like how our modular architecture works and what is possible thanks to that rather than like the monolith. So we got attention from the biggest, I would say, key opinion leaders from the space that were willing to join us in the journey as an angels. Even though we raised like a seed round last year, they were like very interested and kind of believed in what we are building. Therefore, we are happy to announce that 9 or 10, it's still to be defined, top key opinion leaders join a high-profile angel round for RedStone, including Stani Kulehov, founder and CEO of Aave Companies, Sandeep, co-founder of Polygon, Emin, co-founder of Avalanche, Alex, co-founder of ZK Sync, and a couple of other very prominent people. Like the full list is possible to see on articles that we also published today. So this shows conviction of these kind of figures that RedStone is well positioned to capture the market and also offers a good alternative for developers, right? So I want to emphasize here again, we don't want to be the Chainlink killer, as Chainlink doesn't need a killer. Like they do also like a very important job in this space. But there has to be more diversity and also like a player that is more responding to the market trends and allows the dApps to get like true competitive edge. So we are extremely happy to have these kind of builders together with us on the journey.
Congratulations. Yeah, it's great to see so many builders partaking in the round. And one thing that you mentioned is that you met a lot of these people at events, which I feel like events are such an important component to what we're doing and building. And it's important to network and meet people and actually get ingrained in the community. Can you share a little bit about that? And then maybe tell us what is your favorite crypto event you've attended so far?
Yeah, sure. So in the past 1.5 years, I suppose I attended like 20 or maybe even 25 events because we want to be as close to developers as it's possible. So the dynamics over there are very interesting because people talk about what they've read, what they've seen, but they also look on what people build on the hackathons, what the hackers have their mindset at. And over there, we can also understand what kind of data feeds obstacles or limitations they encounter, right? Something that Jacob already mentioned. Like innovation happens over there, so we want to be very close with them. And honestly, ETH Denver this year, 2023, was like kind of an inflection point for us because that was the first event I got quite heavily chased by DeFi protocols rather than I was trying to chat with them, right? Which has shown that there is interest in alternatives. There are a couple of reasons for that. I can expand later. But also, I suppose it might be the moment that people realize that RedStone can be for oracles what L2s are for Ethereum. So like a data scalability layer that is customizable, that inherits the security of the destination chain, because we have this module off-chain component that allows a lot of customizability. But when the data happens to go to a specific ecosystem, all the data packages are signed and decrypted like on-chain. So the security is all in check. So here, again, the tribute to Jacob for designing such an innovative approach. He used to be auditor himself, so he knows like all the best practice in that regard. And as for the event I like the most, I have a huge admiration for ETHCC organizers. Like it's an enormous event in Europe. And ETH Denver this year was also amazing, but I'm biased. I'm co-founder of ETH Warsaw, which happens in Poland. So naturally, like anyone who is willing to join can outreach to me, and I'm willing to provide all the information about Warsaw, the capital of Poland, because we are also located over here.
Amazing. Yes. Love ECC and Jerome and the whole team. Amazing. And then, modular has become a big buzzword. Can you explain for the Defiant audience what that means?
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. So I think we started building blockchains and also the infrastructure in a very monolithic way because it's easier. You got like a single module, single piece of code. You got like a full control, and it's much easier to manage. But then there's like a proliferation of requests, of features. And obviously, if you got this monolithic structure, it's not easy to optimize because working on one part of this big piece of puzzle can break the other part. So we decided if we build our architecture in like a more modular way, so we got like on one side, we got our data fetchers and the data sourcing infrastructure. We got our data delivery network, and we also got like our connectors. So the small piece of code that we can plug into various chains, most of the EVMs, but also like a Starknet, Fuel, all of this new cool stuff coming out there. Then we can be much more nimble, so we can optimize, let's say, the data fetching architecture on one hand side without affecting the connectors, or we can quickly implement a new connector, let's say in a few weeks, and plug into a totally different ecosystem. So therefore, we can separately optimize various pieces and just remain competitive. Also, what is important, after talking to a lot of developers, I think we got an in-depth conversation with more than 100 projects. We realized that they get different needs in terms of data and oracles. So we decided to have currently 3 main ways you can consume data. Are there something we call it a core model when the data is injected to a transaction. So it's on demand, super scalable. We get a classic model that is very similar to Chainlink, but also you get a full customizability over how and when do you update the data. And we got something we call Model X, which is a new cool stuff that we are working on that totally prevents any front running. And we are co-designing that with partners that work on derivatives and perpetuals. So we want to cater for this new super interesting DeFi niche.
Got it. Okay, great. Thank you. And then Marcin, you mentioned that at ETH Denver, people started chasing you. Let's double click into why you think that was. What caused the shift?
Yeah, that's a super good question. And of course, I asked myself a couple of times why it was. So I have a few reasons for that. So first, the Oracle space has been subsidized heavily for the past couple of years even. So people were used to going to an Oracle, for example, Chainlink, asking for price feeds, obtaining them, and then not being asked to pay a lot. Of course, it was important to bootstrap the ecosystem, but since then, there weren't that many attempts to create a healthy business model in the Oracle business. However, in 2023, even Chainlink officially announced new approach of a couple of programs they have. So, for example, right now they ask the bigger players to start contributing to the infrastructure they created. And for the years, if you create an infrastructure that has a huge overhead cost and also huge gas consumption, the end price you're going to ask your customers by just regular logic is going to be quite hefty, right? So to build a scalable Oracle, from day one, you should think about the cost side. Of course, not neglecting the security, but maybe growing slower or maybe not going to the market so quickly. So that's also our approach with RedStone. So we want to be this kind of steadily growing Oracle rather than exploding truly maybe. Because then it might have it might turn out to be a double-edged sword. There's also this scale program from Chainlink. So this is the question of how to approach new ecosystems, right? Should you charge from the day one the ecosystem that you're just available there? Or should you charge when you already bring a client or what? So Chainlink took the approach of if Chainlink is available on a specific chain, especially a new one, you should join a specific program, pay for the Chainlink service and the node operators. And the fee over there, from what we've heard, is also quite significant. So not everyone is so willing to pay so much upfront without knowing what is going to be the result, right? Because it's not you get Chainlink, you get DeFi, or you get a lot of clients. It's just one of the pieces of the infrastructure, whereas you as a layer 1 or layer 2 have so many that you have to think about, right? So Oracle is just one of them. And we position ourselves in a way okay, here's our modular architecture. We think about the dApps, smart contracts, and builders first instead of the ecosystem. And if a specific dApp would like to be present and grow on an EVM chain, we don't have that much of overhead of going there, right? Because it's EVM compatible out of the box. So we rather have the dApp first approach rather than layer 1 or layer 2 network first approach. And we don't charge EVM ecosystems for us to be present over there and support the builders, right? And lastly, something that we heard even today, and honestly I hear it every second day, is that for the newcomers, the new DeFi protocols, in order to create something new, one of the limiting factor are the oracles. So because there's this old way of thinking, okay, you want to create something new, here is the product. Try to fit it into your idea, Whereas we try to ideate together with the guys. So we sit down on the call, we try to listen to them, okay, what's your idea? They tell us, then usually we answer, okay, so like this or like this. And they tell us, all right, it is like a specific project, but with the twist of that. And we try to adjust it to that way. So to sum it up, not a predatory pricing for dApps themselves, not asking EVM chains to pay us a lot upfront. The thing that we might ask is to cover like gas cost when you go with the classic model, so on-chain updates, but it's reasonable and we always try to be transparent with the costs. And last but not least, we give a lot of customizability and innovation for the new players coming into the market.
Got it. And tell us a little bit more about your business model.
Sure. So as Jacob explained, with this off-chain architect, like off-chain module, we can create a couple of data consumption ways, and we can adjust the business model to each of them. So if you go with the RedStone core, which is the most gas optimized and giving you the most, let's say, competitive edge module, then we charge, we go in a kind of like revenue share model with projects. So we can easily monitor how many transactions and what transactions we secure, we protect, and then gather this information throughout the month and then get a small percentage of that. So that when there is a thin month, when there is like a bear market, the dApp doesn't have to pay really a lot because, you know, it's of course usually a problem. And when there is a really good month that or a period, then we can also grow together with the customer. Similar approach is with Model X, so this perpetual specific approach. Whereas when it comes to RedStone Classic, so the, let's say, Chainlink interface approach, we try to charge a monthly subscription fee. So first we calculate the gas and infrastructure cost kind of transparently with the project. So tell them, okay, you want this kind of tokens updated with that heartbeat and this deviation. So historically, that would be the cost. Then we try to add a small margin to that, and that is usually what the projects pay.
Got it. Okay, thank you. And then what are your plans for 2023 and beyond?
We prepared, let's say, new innovative design for the oracles, but what we need to keep moving. So I think the only reason for us to remain in the business is to stay innovating. And as we mentioned, we are actively working on the Model X to prevent any front running and to automatically settle the transactions once they were recorded. So there is like no possibility to front run the price updates. We are also actively working on something we call multi-dimensional prices, which is to provide like a fair market estimation of a liquidation cost of a given collateral. So because obviously, if you are going to liquidate a position that is worth like $1,000, or if you are going to liquidate a position that is worth like 2 million, you will get a different price on the market. And having access to this dynamic information on the real value of your collateral could help DeFi protocols to optimize their margins and to use the liquidity in a more efficient way. Also, we are expanding to other protocols. We are very excited about the ZK networks. We were the first oracles on the ZK Sync. We are active on ZK EVM. We work quite closely with the Starknet Foundation, also having the Cairo adapters. So the expansion to the new cool layers is a fascinating journey for us. And as we mentioned, this year is all about the market growth. So we've been building for a long time, but now this is this exciting moment of like working closely with the DeFi projects and now bringing that to the mainnet and to the real users.
Maybe to add on that, 2023 also shows a very interesting dynamics, which is majority of oracles realize that the on-demand or pool or modular design is probably the way to go, at least with one of the consumption models. So we are very proud to see that because we started like quite early in late 2020, early 21 with such a design. So it's not like we just saw the trend and we tried to create the product as quickly as possible and release it to the market. It's rather something that we've been sustainably like developing step by step. So I would say this year is going to also be important for us to showcase the strengths that we built over the time. So it's, Web3 is a lot about buzz and marketing and, trying to hype and making everything beautiful and shiny. But in the long term, it's the devs that look into the code, integrate and see the value. So for example, when you look into gas consumption efficiency, that matters at scale, or the latency, or how secure are the specific parts of the system. So, your system is as secure as the least secure part of it, right? So we made sure that all of these kind of boxes are checked, and we are confident going into 23 and capturing the market, I would say.
Got it. Okay, exciting. And what are your thoughts on where DeFi is going? What's the future for DeFi?
I might say that I was like very active in the DeFi summer. Like I was stuck in London in a small house, like acting as a hedge fund manager on my couch. It was like an amazing experience. I think a lot of listeners may share it. And now I got a very similar vibe. Like there's a lot of cool project getting out there. So there's like a GMX, there are like perpetuals, there are options protocol, derivatives. So we may say that's the new wave of a DeFi summer is coming to the market. So these protocols that getting more sophisticated. Instead like a simple lending, you get this piece of leveraging, you get like uncollateralized lending. That's also a super interesting idea. So the capital efficiency is increasing. Also, as Marcin mentioned, we got this LST. That's going to be a huge market as well. And also we are seeing much more interest into the feeds for the real world assets. So the feeds for stocks and I think over like bonds. So people start to realize that we cannot simply print money in DeFi. We need to have like a strong fundamentals. So connecting all of that infrastructure to the real world assets, like building derivatives on the government bonds. That's like super interesting topic. We are working with one protocol on that and connecting the feeds for example, stocks or other forms of the collateral. It's also going to be huge in the long term.
Yeah, Kane from Synthetic says it's time for DeFi summer too.
Yeah, to tap into that, I would say also stablecoins. They're popping up more and more of them. So one is to jump on the LST train and also the other train of real world assets. So tokenized bonds, for example. So kind of stable assets and creating stable coins on top of that. So I would say we are going to see more and more of these. And we got quite a lot of requests in that area on various chains with various designs. But I would say it's very interesting to see also outside of only US dollar. As you know, like Euro, of course, tries to strengthen its position on the market and other foreign currencies. And one thing we haven't touched upon at all during this conversation is the regulation, right? So in the regulatory spectrum, there is also a lot of happening in the US, but also in Europe. In Europe, we have MiCA that got passed this year. And as far as I remember, is going to be enforced in next year. So we also created a prototype that is called Know Your Degen Oracle, which essentially means that with this payload from data delivery network, instead of passing data package with a price feed, we pass a data package with an information whether a specific address is whitelisted or blacklisted to interact with a given protocol. So you, as a protocol designer, can implement this Know Your Degen Oracle into your smart contract, and then whoever interacts before the transaction passes is first like double checked against a specific set of rules whether this address is allowed or not. So to give you an example, we can block all the addresses that interacted with Tornado Cash, or you can allow only addresses that have at least withdrawn from Coinbase, which means they did KYC with Coinbase, right? So it's up to the protocol to specify the rules. We just give the ability to do this, let's call it soft KYC on a smart contract level, instead of killing the usability and throwing away the baby with the bathwater, right?
Got it. And do you think DeFi will eventually flip CeFi or centralized finance? Do you think some of the larger CeFi players will adopt DeFi infrastructure?
Yeah, so I'd love to live till that moment. I think I'm a strong believer in this rule that code is low, in the transparency, and having like full visibility, what's happening with your money. I believe like more in the computer code, that all of these, let's say, regulations and legal construction. So that's why my long-term bet is on DeFi. And I think recently it's proven to be really robust during the thermal time. So if we can encode the constraint security in the language of the computer code, that's going to be much more stable than it used to be in the traditional financial markets. That's my take.
Totally. And why would you say you're each passionate about crypto?
Yeah, so maybe I'm just going to add one sentence on what Jacob said is many networks and ecosystems right now try to create an environment for institutions to embrace, let's say DeFi. So on Avalanche, we have dedicated institutional subnets like Evergreen and Spurs. And we, for example, as an Oracle, deliver data to both of them. We've got Coinbase with Base, of course, like the layer 2, and other like, let's say, well-curated environment for these institutions to go. So I'm pretty positive about even this year seeing some like major players at least tipping their toes into the ecosystem. Maybe we'll see, maybe from the US, maybe from other countries. And personally, why I'm hyped about crypto and the whole world is in 2017, I was writing my bachelor's thesis about blockchain technology, and I got very hooked. So it was very fun to, look into something totally new and different, and also try to figure out what kind of applications there might be in the future. Or then I was dwelling whether there is going to be decentralized exchange or some other solutions. Turned out that the reality came quicker than later. In 2018, I got scammed and didn't get 2 salaries for my job in crypto, so I got burned. Later, I was working at Google Cloud, which was a very, let's say, comfy place to stay. But when Jacob came back and asked me whether I want to, leave the very pleasant place to work in for years and try to build something truly meaningful for the builders, I had no hesitation. So here I'm also very thankful for Jacob to taking on me to the journey and pass it to him.
Yeah, I hope he will say the same in a few years, that it was a wise decision. But it's an amazing journey. I think it's a fascinating ecosystem in terms of the amount of innovation, the production cycle. In crypto, if you got a really good idea and if you got the skills to build a cool project, then suddenly, in terms of, let's say, few weeks, you can attract lots of liquidity, tons of users. You can plug in to all of the partnering protocols without doing tons of, like, say, agreements or procedures, etc. It's a very open and permissive system. It's an amazing place to innovate. And if we get these tools as builders, and also it's a very nice crowd, all of the DeFi builders people, then definitely there's going to be more and more amazing products out there. And I think we can overtake the CeFi and the TradFi soon.
Amazing. Yes, let's do it. And then last question is, how are you each defiant?
I think trying to get into the market that is so monopolized by Chainlink, you need to be totally crazy. Like when we started that, like there's absolutely no point for another oracle because Chainlink controls like 99.99% of the market. So you need to be kind of a defiant, brave, and simply believe that you can provide a value. And yeah, we are seeing that more and more projects are positive to what we are building. They are eager to integrate. We got live integrations. We are on mainnets protecting real money. So it's going there. So it's worth to be defiant in this ecosystem.
So I'm Defiant, going to all Web3 events always with RedStone merch and trying to design it as innovatively as possible. People who have met me might have received various gifts with RedStone in there. The ones that have not and are wondering what it could be, please meet me and all the other events I'm going to be this year and the other. Always look for RedStone, red vests or jackets. We are well branded.
Amazing. Well, thank you so much for coming on. Appreciate it.
Thanks a lot for having us, Tegan.